I think an open forum really for this. I've got some question prompts if anybody doesn't have any questions, but I'll just give it a minute and see if anybody has any specific questions they're hoping to learn about tool lending or repair events.
You mentioned yesterday that you've done like sewing themed ones and putting stuffed animals back together. What are some themes that you've had a lot of success with?
With workshops.
Mhm. With repair workshops.
Yeah. Sharpening is always a really popular one. Being able to extend the life of things that are in people's homes that they use every day has been really effective. And we're able to really teach the principles that can be carried onto any other tool. That's what we try to focus on. We've done some basic stitching and teaching people, what the most common stitches used for repair are. And then replacing power cords, that's a big one too. Gives you a really basic introduction to kind of working with electrical components. And then we do a bicycle repair workshop. Those are kind of our most successful ones. Gets people using tools, fixing something that's going to make a really big impact. Cami, you want to answer that question?
Sorry, could you repeat that, Jesse?
So I was thinking it would also help manage expectations of people when you have themes for a repair event. So, like Jason mentioned, oh, we're going to do common sewing repair, and people can bring stuff and also learn. So, I was wondering if people have had success with that kind of thing.
I've seen it very successful in all ways, and I see that Peter from Fix It Clinics and actually Wayne, I see Wayne's hand is raised. You can do yes and some groups do just one focal point, and they're able to have more supplies on hand, maybe have more specific fixers on hand for that. But it is also really nice to have the sort of cafeteria model, and you just message that in advance. These are the sort of like 5 or 6 categories that we're going to offer. It obviously all of this depends on whether people read and and follow directions, which can always be a bit of a crapshoot. With the Fix It Clinic models, they can bring anything they want, and the expectation is that they are going to work on it themselves. So I think an important component is trying to make sure that people understand that you might not have the replacement part, that they should try to procure a replacement part and bring that with them. But of course, many times people don't know what's wrong with it, so it's very difficult to know what the replacement part would be. I'm going to hand it over to Wayne.
Okay. So in Boulder, we've done some special topic Fix It Clinics, partially because they're fun and partially to just sort of help all of our volunteers raise their skills in an area that we're not so comfortable with. So something we did a few years ago was fix a coffee pot in a coffee shop. So we had a local great coffee organization, serve us coffee and put tables out. And we brought a billion zillion coffee pots and espresso makers. And we learned a lot about seeing these all at once. We've done something for musicians. So learn how to make a guitar chord and test it and then fix your electric guitar. And then we had a jam session in the theater at the library where we have a makerspace. That was fun. Most recently, we did something that's something that a lot of us are afraid of, us too. We did microwave ovens. And some clinics say, don't bring your oven. And it sort of bothered me when I saw how many of these go through our recycle bin at EcoCycle here in Boulder. And I said, maybe we should learn something. And we had a almost week-long event at a new makerspace we just opened up. And within a couple hours, you realize these things are almost all of the same parts inside. We bought some specialized tools for doing some diagnosis and testing. We were concerned about safety of emissions and things and have a tool that measures that. And we fixed most of the microwaves for cheap, for you know, 10 cent, 20 cent parts for switches and things for the doors. So that was kind of interesting. And again, you know, the goal was to get all of our repair coaches, as we call them, a little less afraid of these things. And of course, very careful and safety conscious. So as a result, we put together some repair resources, and I'll post them in the chat. So feel free to take a look at this. There's a Google Doc. Comment on it if you want, but it's sort of a, you know, how to triage your microwave oven, what tools you might want to use, where to look first. So yeah, so that's one reason to do special topics. I've also done, you know, just lamps, you know, because sometimes people want to we've always had a lamp every hour of every clinic. And so this has been like, welcome to the world of repair, bring lamps. The funny, unexpected thing was a 7-year-old kid found his special purpose and was running around like a nut, stripping wire and reminding people what brass and silver. Just like he was so amazed. I don't know how it happens, but sometimes you just find those people that this is their thing. So just amazing. But but raise your skills, have fun, get focused on something that we're not particularly good at fixing, or bring in an audience of people that don't know about repair yet. Thanks.
I know that the Repair PDX down here has a lot of success with KitchenAid mixers as a workshop, because those are just really high quality items. They can be easily repaired, and then you know what parts you have, you know what needs to be taken apart, put together. They, I believe, charge for that workshop just because it is a bit more time intensive, but it's sells out every time. So sometimes really having a very specific tool that's very common can be helpful for just reaching out to people, getting them into the repair space.
Those are great ideas. Thank you.
Jason, I don't know if you saw in the chat about moves being made towards common standards for tool libraries. If you wanted to comment on that.
I don't have an answer for that. It's a great topic for the Tool Library Alliance and the Google group. The issues that we've seen so far are largely software based, or the conversations that I've been involved in, at least, with a couple of different lending softwares and having a big catalog of things. Can really be either it's going to be controlled by one individual or group organization that has to manage all of that data, or things can be kind of open source contributed, and it gets pretty muddy pretty quickly when you've got a string trimmer, a weed whacker, a weed whip, and 6 different words for one thing. I don't have anything else on that at this time, but it's a great topic for further exploration. Does anybody else have any thoughts or plans on that?
And I would encourage anybody, well, everybody, if you want to come on screen, unmute. This really is an open format conversation. So I know there are several of you out there that run your own repair events and or tool libraries. So feel free, jump in.
I would say also in terms of workshops, we've had some success where we host it as a learn a crafting skill, and then also have a fabric repair with that event. So it's kind of a make and mend model. That's been really successful for us too. I think there was a question a little bit regarding the tool truck that we're using, so I'll share that briefly. We were hoping to get into a space, and it hasn't come together yet, but we had someone who offered us a box truck for about $4,000. So we jumped on that. We've got that outfitted. It's pretty similar to the share shed that's over in the UK. Much less robust, but we've got about 475 tools in there. Currently, we're doing lending at one location. one day a week, but that's just as we grow our volunteer capacity. We just started in September, end of September. But the hope is we can take, lending to different locations, really introduce more people to the concept, go to lower income communities where it might be harder to find a sizable space to host a library, and give lending opportunities to those folks. We've been working with, we were approached by a company called Revolve Solar, who recycles solar panels. And they're going to be putting solar panels on our truck for us. So we'll be able to add power to that, and then work as a mobile tool demonstration truck, and do a little bit of repair work from that as well. So.
Hi, my name is Eric Shen, and we're in the midst of trying to think about how to bring repair service on a more routine basis. Right now, we primarily focus in the spring and summer with a monthly repair event where it's one of these cafeteria style repairs. Whatever you bring, if it fits on the table, we'll take a crack at it. But it's becoming obvious that if we want to make a real change in the thinking in our community about being able to think about getting their items repaired when they need to get them repaired, and it will help really kind of change the attitude that, oh, well, I need it now, I'm going to buy a new one. If we can get it repaired, we'll do it later. And a lot of times what happens is people just donate it after it's repaired, so it's not really changing people's mindsets. So I'm looking for ideas about how to transition. We're looking at models that hybridize a volunteer effort with trying to match up with professional services. Perhaps I've seen some folks do all volunteer on a routine basis. I just kind of like to hear how you guys approach that or are thinking about approaching that topic of offering a more routine repair service.
Anyone?
Hey Eric, this is Megan with Austin Resource Recovery in Texas. We have had similar issues and things that we're thinking about. We haven't solved them yet, but I'll tell you one idea that we've been throwing around is to partner with one of our city senior centers to set up some sort of ongoing drop-off fix-it clinic situation, exactly to solve that problem of like, I need this fixed now, and if I can't find somewhere to get it fixed within the next week, I'm going to buy something new. So our idea was 1 to 2 days a week, a group of senior fixers or just general fixers. The senior center could really just be the location, not necessarily the volunteer source. So they would have that time set up where they would work on those items, and they can be dropped off at the senior center at any time. We also talked about doing like a mentorship program through this. So you had like the intergenerational aspect of senior fixers working with maybe high school students from down the street or something. So anyway, something that we're thinking about, haven't made it happen yet, but just an idea to float.
Okay, so you think you have enough volunteers to sort of do that kind of on-demand repair?
I don't know whether we do or not. I think one of our thoughts was if we worked with the senior center, they already have a community there that may or may not have repair skills. We don't know, but we hope that maybe they do have repair skills. And then we have a pretty solid group of volunteers. Right now, we run only one fix-it clinic a quarter, so we aren't putting very much demand on them. So I don't think we know what is the top end of how much time they're willing to spend on this sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah, we have the same sort of thing. But right now, what we try and do, we're up to about 7 or 8 events a year, but we try to make sure our volunteers are not committed to more than 3, perhaps 4 in the year. So the same sort of consideration you were thinking about is that we don't burn anybody out. And by limiting the time that they are committing, it's still fun. I think that's sort of a real key factor for us is that our volunteers, a lot of them have been with us for the whole 13 years we've been in business. So the whole reason that works is because they think it's fun, but the moment it gets to be a little onerous, I think that whole aspect goes out the window.
Yeah, it's tricky. Definitely a balance you have to find.
I want to flag for folks' attention Peter's comment about the always there repair concept using the Global Fixers Discord server. I think that's a fantastic resource. It does require that people are a little more personally motivated to tackle a repair, but assuming that they're at least like repair curious, they can go in and check in with experts from around the world, experts, sometimes self-taught experts, which is a certain kind of expertise too, and get guidance on like, well, I've got this thing and I just don't even know where to start, or I've gotten this far and I need some help. So he did drop the link in the chat for joining the Fixers Discord server. Eric, I wanted to ask you, like, what sort of recruitment efforts do you all have you had success with recruitment at your events themselves? Is there a clear way for people who are interested to get involved? Because I mean, we often have like a committed body of volunteers, but how do we bring more people in? Is it like, oh, well, we're our own like little club and we're good? Or is there really an active invitation for more folks to join?
Well, so far, we haven't really had to do much recruitment because, like I said, everybody can see how much fun we're having and they want to get in on it. So that's not been much of an issue. But recently, with your help, we got a grant to have a coordinator join us who is also an outreach specialist, so that we're able to pass along the message about why it's important to have items repaired versus just be replaced. And that's something we've always wanted to do, but we were so busy repairing the items, we really didn't have a lot of time to chit chat with people about the need to consider reducing our consumption. But one of the efforts, I believe our coordinator is here, Katrina White is our project coordinator. And we have increased our advertising and our advertising venues. And that oftentimes brings more volunteers. And by having Katrina with us, she can do a lot of the interfacing with people that are walking by and wanting to volunteer or follow up on volunteers later on. And that makes a big difference as well. So I think having a front door person makes a big difference in that whole ability to interface with people, make sure that there's some follow-up, so on and so forth.
I think that raises a very good point about the many ways that people can be involved in these events, because I've seen people reflecting like, well, I don't know how to fix anything. I'm like, but there are for sure things that you do know how to do. And like, you're good with people, or you like taking pictures, or you like organizing things. And I've said it before, those people are pure gold, because you need the people person, you need the person who likes spreadsheets, who wants to collect data, who wants to send stuff out on social media. I don't want to do that. The fixers often don't want to do that. So how can you invite more varieties of people to be meaningfully engaged? And then it just balloons or blossoms, whichever you want to say, because then they share it with other people, especially if they are more socially socially minded person, or socially inclined person, the word's going to spread and you get more and more involvement from a greater variety of folks. I wanted to respond to, unless somebody else has something they want to interject with. Christy, do you want to come off mute and ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much. So, yeah, I think I was wondering more generally some of the feedback that folks have gotten in response to the different models that they may have tried of the events. And then kind of as the follow-up, which thanks Megan for answering for your organization as well, but how do you kind of get that feedback, record it? I'm seeing that like a survey might be a way, but that's just something I've been thinking about a lot.
I don't want to take up all the space, but I'll try to reflect not only from the events that I've been part of, but some things that I've heard from other groups. There's such a range. You get everything from, I can't believe this exists, to, well, I was expecting something different. It's so hard to gauge. I mean, people bring so many different things and so many parts of themselves to repair events. So it really depends on what their expectations are and how much you can actively manage those beforehand. But people are, broadly speaking, just thrilled that they even have the option. Often, even if the news was not good about their item, if it can't be repaired, they're like, I'm so glad to know now, and I'm not going to continue to store it in my closet. I can let it go. Or they've had something that, you know, maybe it's an heirloom, maybe it's something that they don't have to use every day, and they've finally gotten it fixed. Or they, in some cases, tried to fix it themselves and were not successful. And now it's working again, and they're over the moon. There's so many great stories from people of all kinds. But other more specific feedback, are you thinking kind of like which model do people prefer?
Yeah, I think I'm thinking that, like, if you've gotten anything that has, or feedback initially when you started one way that made you pivot.
Mm-hmm. I think it's every group adjusts all the time. And that's something that comes up in the shop talks, because people are like, oh, well, we were trying to do this, like we tried advanced registration and it just didn't work, or it worked great. I know something that Peter often says, that a common issue is line management. So how long are people waiting to get into an event? And in some events, it can be quite a while. So one option to address that is have other activities that people can participate in. I always think of the free tables. So like bring something that you are wanting to let go of, pick up something that you want. So it's more of an activity. Whereas Peter's means of addressing that is like, everybody can come in, there's no waiting, you're just going to go to a table and get some tools and start working on the thing. So it works for different people.
Yeah, what I've seen out here in Gresham is we pair our repair cafe with a free swap. And so that brings people who are a little bit more thrift minded into the space, to encourage them to bring in things that can be repaired, and just kind of opening that door. And I would say, in terms of our repair, like if we were doing a repair workshop, a sharpening workshop, for example, if you call it a workshop, you better have some hands-on activities. we've made a mistake of bringing in some people who are really enthusiastic to talk about like the science and the history behind sharpening, which is fascinating. But if you don't touch anything and then call it a workshop, you know, it's not really the same thing. Donica?
Yeah, hi, thank you. I'm only tool library and repair adjacent, so this may be kind of a goofy question, but I'm curious. We've talked a lot about what is working for everybody, and I would love to know what you think the major barriers are. Where is your biggest opportunity point for those of us who are trying to support from the outside? Where are there opportunities, and what do you see as a big concern?
I think the biggest opportunity that I would say is connecting with groups like, you know, a resale shop that already has a community kind of built around it and saying, can we bring these things to your space? And really trying to grow our networks because, you know, communication and advertising for any kind of event is a huge time suck. So if you already have an established community that we can plug into, it would be a huge help.
And I would say this may be, I think it's in some ways true for the tool libraries. It's continuity of service. So that's one of the reasons that the Global Fixers Discord is so helpful, and people who are more inclined to try themselves. Of course, there's always YouTube, which you can go down the rabbit hole of this video that says, yes, you totally can repair this thing in this way. I think the more having more guidance is helpful, but the lack of regular availability for any of these things is one of the biggest challenges. And we're all trying to address it in different ways. Eric was talking about, can we have Eric and Megan, can we have a more regular open hours at a community space or through professional repair services? And the challenge I think we're all seeing is, where are those professional repair services? There are some in some fields, in some geographies, but until we start really investing and tapping into this gap in skill development and viable careers in repair, we're not going to get there. So we've got to get really creative and work across disciplines to help reskill folks and ensure that it's actually a viable pathway. Like, you aren't just going to go into appliance repair because it feels good. You need to be able to pay rent and support yourself. And can we make that argument right now? Not really.
Right.
Not really. So policy and people and the educational system, all to get coordinated somehow. And, our economic system.
Well, there's that. So I could throw out, for those of you who don't know me, but I have a resale shop, and it's a little bit of a community hub, which is something that is important to me. And something that happened just this past week is one of my customers saw me sewing an item, fixing it so I could put it out for sale, and let me know that they were a tailor. And I've had people ask me, do I know where the tailors are in the community? And so maybe a role a resale shop could have would be just as an information share. She gave me a handful of her business cards, and knowing that that's something that could be helpful, I could have electricians' business cards, or I could have the calendar of the local repair dates to just be a partner in sharing that information.
Yes.
Yeah. I would just say one thing. We had kind of a cork board for people to post community things at the Greenlands Tool Library. And because there's significant licensing restrictions that are required by the state for landscapers and things like that, the board had decided to kind of pivot away from that, just because, depending on what you're offering, repair things definitely makes a lot of sense. Because there's not really any regulation behind that, so it's less vetting that's required of the organization. But just letting people know that, it's open information and people can post things there. It's not necessarily an endorsement of that person. What we've
Mm.
done a little bit with like workshops is when I meet those people, I say, that's great. You want to teach that skill? And we've been able to get some small sponsorship grants to do an honorarium for instructors to come in, and we pay them $150 to teach the class, $250 if they give us some instructional material that we can hold on to. And then the community learns about them, and we don't let them, solicit people during the actual event. But, if they have a conversation afterwards and it turns out they need some help with something that they didn't quite figure out, that's not a problem for us. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
And Donica, I may have been one of those people who asked if you knew where the Taylors were, because it's really hard to find them in our area, which was astonishing to me. It seems that there are a lot of these services that have become less formal, possibly because people don't want to deal with business licenses or tax, don't know, but they're, especially I'd say in rural communities and possibly lower income community. Well, no, that gets even more complicated, but people are just like doing it on the side.
Yeah, well, and our society has shifted. Like, you used to learn that kind of thing from your mom and grandma, and now you don't. So maybe there's room there for those conversations too.
all of the conversations, all of the encouragements. Anybody else that had questions that we've missed? To your point, Jesse, yes, I know, for example, we have several like remakeries here in Washington, and they'll do a little bit of both. They'll have a more structured project with, let's say, scrap material, but then they also offer sort of rotating, we're going to do visible mending now, or like we're going to tackle this kind of complex repair project. So it is definitely like sort of entice people in with an interesting, tantalizing project, and then like now we're going to get into repair.
Yeah, for sure. Something that we've been kind of piloting out here is working with, we're trying to bring more available space into community access. And so we started working with a craft warehouse that has classes, and they use their space for paid workshops. But through that funding system, we can give them a little bit of an instructor stipend to then let our community get in there. They see all the materials that they have. They make their own hand spun and dyed wool right here in the community, which nobody would have known that it was there, because it's a very industrial space. And now they have a craft warehouse with a workspace. So uplifting those partners that are, share our goals. It's been a fun thing to see the community respond to.
I didn't know.
Amy, we have a second here.
Yeah. Well, we have 38 seconds.
Okay. I saw in the chat somebody talking about, should we be working on repairing things that professionals do, and our policies, we don't. Like, for example, knife sharpening, we had no knife sharpener for a while. So we did that. But as soon as somebody wanted to do it professionally, we just didn't offer it anymore. So that was one possible response.
We have a session coming up in two breakouts from now that will address that specific topic as well. It's a debate.